Okay, right. I think we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to World Cup Day 15. Did a little bit of a broadcast earlier today, but this is the kind of main, main chunk of the talking today. I don't even know what to call this stream. I think from now on we're going to be doing these on stream because it just seems to be quite good quality. I watched back the bit that I did earlier and it seemed to work pretty well. And yeah, I think this is what we're going to do going forward. And also, to be fair, a lot of the content going forward will be a bit more sporadic because the games aren't going to be every day and we're not going to get 4 games a day like we have done for the last couple of weeks or so. But yes, what a day. What a brilliant game for England. A fantastic game for England. I'm absolutely thrilled, to be honest, to see that team play that well. Admittedly, the first half an hour, a little bit dodgy. Not so much dodgy is not really the right word. I think it took us a little while to figure out that Senegal were pressing so high, and probably the first time I think this tournament that we've been pressed that high up the pitch, and taken a little bit of time to kind of adjust to that. But yes, what a brilliant result for England, and roll on France. I mean, this France game now, after this result, against what I thought was definitely the best African team, easily the best African team I think I've watched at a World Cup. And they almost they definitely disappointed me a little bit today. I think the way that they caved in so quickly after conceding the first goal was, and I'm not trying to be negative on them. This is not the idea, but it was just I was expecting almost as in kind of semi-neutral. Obviously, I'm an English fan. I'm an England fan. Sure, for whatever you want to call it, I'm patriotic, but I also enjoy watching good football games, and I was very disappointed to see how Senegal just didn't have an answer. As soon as England went 1-0 up, for some reason, they just seemed to lose their heads, I think. And that's, as I mentioned earlier, you can't afford to lose your head in a World Cup game because you're likely to lose it. And that's exactly what happened to Senegal today, I think, in terms of how they played. I think Cisse on the bench was telling them, keep your heads, because that they were losing theirs after losing the first goal, especially after the promising start that they'd made. The first 30 minutes, it looked like we're in for a really tough game for England. And one that if they conceded the first goal, you could almost see turning into a hungry home or away for England, just because I think England haven't yet been tested in terms of losing the first goal and how do they respond to that in this tournament. We've seen that before. Have we seen that before in a major tournament with this England team since 2018? I actually don't know. When have we conceded the first goal in a knockout match? I don't think we ever have under Southgate. I'm trying to think. It wasn't against. If we go back to like Colombia, we didn't. Then Sweden, we didn't. Then Croatia, we didn't. And then obviously we lost that game against Croatia, and then we didn't against Germany. I can't even remember who you played in those games. We didn't against. We did against Denmark. We did. That was the first time that we conceded the first goal. It was against Denmark in the semi-final of the Euros, and then we scored the first against Italy, and then here we haven't conceded the first again. So it's a lot of, I think, playing good knockout football is scoring that first goal. It sounds really obvious, going 1-0 up, but I think at this level, the margins are so small that if you get that first goal, you're given the kind of levity to be able to change your tactics to stop teams from being able to kind of sit back and defend against you. So that's kind of how this game has gone. And I suppose what I'll do first is I'll just kind of run through a few of the notes that I had going forward. Where are my notes? Here we go. So as we talked about that first half, the first 20-30 minutes, it looked like both teams were capable of scoring, but neither team were particularly willing to go all out to try and score. I think. I say neither team. England definitely weren't, and England were very comfortable in trying to just play the ball out from the back. But Harry Maguire was a bit of a liability on the ball all games. Well, not all game. As long as the game was competitive, he was a liability on the ball, and he was giving the ball away a few times in this game. And that might be, looking forward to France, again, we'll probably come back to that. But looking forward to France, that could be a problem, because as much as Giroud won't press, I do think that we'll see pressing from Dembele, and we'll definitely see pressing from Mbappe. It'll be interesting to see if Giroud plays against England as well, to be fair. Difficult to make a case for him not to play, but with that idea of pressing in mind, then if England are going to try and keep the ball as much as they can, I'd wonder whether France will go all out and maybe play maybe Mbappe through the middle and then someone else on the left, for example. I'm not sure. So Senegal's game plan was, for the first half an hour, absolutely perfect. What they wanted to do was try and basically push England back to halfway, but they were happy for England to a point to pass the ball around the back, and then they would gradually push forward. The longer that England got, the longer that England decided to pass the ball around the back. As soon as that happened, that meant that they would then get the ball quickly and then counter press and then attack, I suppose. But also when they sat back, their counter attacking was really threatening. I've got a yawn coming on. If you notice as well in my videos, I've been cutting bits out because I yawn in the middle of videos. It's really annoying. And I didn't yawn earlier when we were doing the stream, but today it's just, I suppose it's after all the energy of watching that game. So yeah, when Senegal then eventually got the ball, or they played it long, and tried to find the man in behind, it happened quite often, and quite scarily so as well, where Maguire and Stones looked a little bit insecure for the first time in this tournament, and it was slightly concerning to watch, having these guys who are very athletic, very they find it easy to run in behind. They don't really have the technical quality in the midfield to be able to play that pass, which is why I think Idrissa Gueye, missing him was a big blow for this. Probably more so than Mane, actually, to an extent. I think they could kind of get by without Mane. They would obviously be a better team, but I don't think with that Gueye in that midfield, they probably wouldn't play the ball into Mane as well. So I think Ismaila Sarr was a bit of a threat on the left. There was a couple of times, there's once actually Walker fouled him from behind. I was very surprised they didn't get booked. I think Dia, he did all right, again threatening him behind, but it just, in the end, it was taking their chances. There was a couple of there you go, that's the yawn. I'll move on from that. So there's a couple of chances that Senegal had that were absolutely kind of cast iron, really good chances in the first half, and England were fortunate they didn't go 1-0 down. But after that, England obviously went on to score. Before I talk about that, though, there was another point that England kept in their pattern of play. There was a couple of chances they made, but mostly the first 30 minutes were fairly unthreatening from England, I think. We had a couple of chances. There was a moment when Saka won the ball off of Koulibaly, I think, and spent a bit too long on the ball there. It wasn't Koulibaly, it was the other centre-back. And then I think there was another couple of chances where Foden got in as well. But mostly it was quite secure from Senegal. And that was partly because when England got the ball in that midfield, with Bellingham, Henderson and Rice, or if it was very often Saka and Foden would come back and join the midfield. So you'd basically, and also have Kane coming short to try and kind of circulate the play in the midfield. to allow the ball to progress forward. But the problem was that as soon as they circulated the ball like that, what would happen is the ball would go forward to a winger, who'd probably play a 1-2 with the midfielder, and then eventually get the ball back in a position where they can only really go backwards. And their choices were either go backwards or play the ball back into the midfield, and they almost always chose the ball back to the defence, with the fullbacks joining in there as well. It was not progressive play for England. Yes, they're looking after the ball, but there were moments when they could have played the ball. Either they could have played the ball incisively into the midfield. Yes, maybe taking a bit of a risk, but these players are capable of that, I think, of doing it properly. And also, there were moments when they just had the ball in the midfield. Henderson, I think, once had the ball completely free in the midfield. No one pressing him. Decided to turn back and play it back to Maguire. Do not understand why that was happening in the first half, because I think after that first 25-30 minutes spell, Senegal were kind of not, they were more confident, but as a result there were spaces, and there were spaces that they could have driven into. Eventually they did cotton on to that, and it was towards the end of the first half where oh dear, there you go, that's the yawning. It was towards the end of the second half where the first half, sorry, where Foden, not Foden, who scored the first goal? Henderson, where Henderson and Kane scored their goals, was just very quick, bang, 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 passes right through the midfield into channels and then squaring it back. And then, so the first goal, let me see if I can talk about this. So Henderson, I think it's really clever play actually. This kind of, I'll talk about Harry Kane later in his positional play, because it's really, really, really good, and it works brilliantly for England because they actually want to attack. Any Spurs fans watching, I apologise, but it's very difficult not to make a jab at that one. So Kane coming short, receives the ball and then passes it off to, is it Bellingham? No, he doesn't. He passes it off to Foden, or I think it might be Shaw on the left-hand side. And then Shaw plays a lovely ball in behind for Bellingham, who's running past Kane. So Kane has dragged the defender out of the way, and there's a huge space, and no one's tracking Bellingham as he's going past. That leaves him completely free, and all he has to do is pass the ball back into the space where Henderson's arriving, and he finishes. And it's that rotation of play that I think England have been trying to do all tournament, and they've succeeded sometimes. I think a couple of the goals against Wales kind of played like that, and also the first couple of goals against Iran definitely was that kind of play. It was just brilliant football. It was really, really good football. The kind of football I think that I wouldn't be surprised watching Arsenal play and have them produce that kind of football. So really, really good. Second goal. I'll talk the pressing from England as well. It was interesting watching the two pressing styles actually, because I think Senegal did have a semblance of kind of training behind their pressing, and like knowing they've got to cut off the first pass and curve you around so that you can get closer to them, and then eventually cut off both passes and get them passed back to the goalkeeper. England were doing it perfectly, where there was a coordinated press. As soon as we scored the first goal, you notice that Saka was running at the player with the ball and then curving his run so he could then stop the ball going to the centre back as well as being able to stop the ball down the line, and then they had to go back to the goalkeeper. Sometimes they didn't even do that, and they tried to keep the ball with Saka bearing down on them, and Saka, I think, won the ball off of centre back in that particular position. It was a great bit of play, and I think the other thing that happened as well was that there was a moment of really coordinated press where Saka is getting down this right hand side. Saka pressed, then they played the ball past him, but then immediately there was like two. I think Walker was on him, and then I think it was Henderson as well backing up on that right hand side, and they were just trying to play the ball. Eventually, the only thing the Senegal could do was play a really difficult ball into their centre back, into their strikers, and hope that it stuck, and it didn't stick, and England kept the ball back. That is the kind of thing. If England want to dominate the ball against France, they're going to have to do that. It's to be very brave, because obviously the pace of Mbappe, especially down that left-hand side, is going to be really difficult to deal with. But go for this game, perfect. It's like, this is what you want to do: dominate the ball, eventually dominate the game, and also limit Senegal's chances. So the second goal, this is a weird one because Bellingham breaks through the midfield on a break, and he's already gone past two players at this point. There's two players flanking him either side. You're thinking, surely they've got to take him down here. They can't let him go through here, because if they do, what happened in the end will happen. Where he gets the ball past these two other defenders and then passes it on to Foden, who plays the ball first time to Kane, who has so much time to just control the ball and then smash it far post. Not even far post, really. It's kind of middle of the goal, really. It wasn't an amazing finish. But the fact that Bellingham was allowed to do that was just complete lack of kind of game nous from those Senegal midfielders. Just, it's like they had no idea, because there was only one defender back past them. They should have known there was one defender there, and you've got to block the pass, or you've got to take him out, make a foul, make sure he never gets an opportunity to play that ball in. Because if he does, obviously what happened, Foden executed it really well, but they shouldn't be allowed that chance. If you're watching that in the Premier League, the player gets taken out 100 times out of 100. They get taken out because they're so close. And Arsenal get this all the time when they try to play on the counter. Usually the team they're playing against will just take out the player who's on the ball. And even if the ball has gone through to another player, the ref will blow up for a foul, because they'll see it as dangerous play probably, and it would be at least a yellow card. So that was the second goal. Great finish for Kane. Great for his confidence. Let's just hope that just lasts for the World Cup, and then he just kind of falls off after that when he plays for Spurs. And then when it came, that was actually the very last kick of the first half, and I think that was a really good moment to score for England. You think about the way that half went. There's no way, if you showed that, but then you showed none of the goals to someone who hadn't seen the game before and didn't know, they would have said, "Oh, it's 0-0, right? Okay, maybe 1-0 to Senegal." They looked more likely to score than England did. But then England broke, and they were clinical with their chances. And I remember saying a while ago on a stream that I did, not a stream, I said a while ago on a video that I think the team that are the most clinical going forward will be the team who wins the World Cup this year. Just because I think we've got to a point in terms of general footballing, not culture, but footballing tactics culture. It's so difficult to stop a team from making chances. Generally speaking, every team will give up one or two good chances every game. And it's about whether you can take those chances. And if you do, what's the game state at the time? Are you winning? Are you drawing? Are you losing? And that'll probably determine how your game's going to go. And at the moment, England are right up there in terms of the most clinical team out of all the teams that we've seen play this World Cup. I think we've also got France-ish, kind of. But I don't think there's another team I've seen who have had like so few chances, but they've taken every one of theirs. And it's, yeah, it's very, very impressive from England. If this is a Premier League team, I wouldn't be surprised. They're like that. That's the kind of standard that you'd expect in the Premier League. So, and obviously the other side of the coin is that Senegal didn't take their chances. That's why they were 2-0 down. Okay, so Senegal made 3 changes at half time, bless them. And they were clearly going for broke, but it just didn't work. And I think England's third goal kind of illustrated that, to be honest. And Kane taking a shot. Oh no, so Saka making it 3-0. Whereas it was another kind of breakaway where I think Kane managed to get the ball deep, got it past the defender. Eventually it ran for Foden. He got the ball, knew there was a challenge coming, and rode that challenge, got it past him, and then played it through the legs of Koulibaly into the path of Saka. The finish from Saka was absolutely brilliant. It's just like, that's the kind of thing that you would expect. Like Thierry Henry would be pleased with that finish. It's just a brilliant little dink with his left foot over past the goalkeeper's outstretched hand, I think it might be because he knows about Mendy as well. He has played against him when he's played for Chelsea, and he knows that he likes to do this kind of like splayed out on the floor with his hand kind of up in the air to try and stop a shot. And I think as far as goalkeepers are concerned, that's probably as good as you get, because if you're that far down and the ball's not going to go underneath you, and if your hands are up here, that's kind of as good as you're going to get. The problem, I think, is it allows for little to no reaction time. Yeah, and you're not kind of closing the angle down to stop the ball from getting past you, and that's why I'm not a goalkeeper myself, but I'm not a massive fan of that save style, because you're kind of static. You're like a statue. If the ball does get past you, that's it. You're done. Obviously, that's kind of how goalkeeping works. But if you kind of close the ball down, I think you don't think Saka scores there, really. I think if you close it down further and keep going forwards, Saka doesn't score. It gets saved. It probably comes off his face or something, but that'll be fine. That's the goalkeeper's job. It was a great goal though from Saka, and the boys doing so well under so much pressure after the Euros and everything that happened there, to come back and then score the 2 against Iran, to then have a bit of an average game against the US and still come back and play this well after not starting against Wales. Just very impressive, and he delivers as well. Like, this is the thing I don't really get about some of the clamour for Foden and Bellingham is deserved. Some of it is deserved, but I think the fact that they get that clamour and then Saka doesn't get the same kind of clamour, it doesn't sit right with me. I think it's not particularly fair, because I've seen Foden have bad games for England. Have I seen Bellingham have bad games? Probably not. He's not had many, to be fair. But I think if Bellingham had, Bellingham's not been in the team long enough really to kind of say that. But for Saka, he's been so consistent all the way through the Euros, brilliant. All the way through this tournament when he's played, brilliant. I think the reason why the USA game didn't work out so well for him, just the whole team just didn't seem like it was set up right. I think it was very weird, and also I think it's different to. I think Saka works really well in a game where you have to go and win. I don't think he works so well in a team that is just trying to sit back and get a point, and that looked a lot like what we were doing against the US, to be fair. If that was his plan, I think starting someone like Rashford on the right would have probably made more sense, because he provides more of a counter-attacking threat, whereas Saka is more like, give the ball to me at my feet, I can then either play a ball in or try and dribble past my player, and then make a goal from that. So yeah, Saka needs a bit more love. I think he's so good, and I think regardless of what happens at this World Cup from here on in, I think the expectations have been met for him now, and looking forward to seeing him come back and play for England. Please don't get injured, not like Jesus, who's already injured. We don't want to have a huge injury list after this World Cup and then have to deal with that for the start of the Premier League return. So talking about Kane, this is Senegal's biggest tactical problem. The biggest tactical problem was not being able to follow Kane around the pitch at all. They didn't have anyone who could just, you stand on his feet and don't let him move. Or if you're going to let him move, follow him. Make sure he doesn't get space and time on the ball. And in the end, there was a moment in the second half before the third goal where he got the ball to feet, facing away from the goal, turned around and noticed there was no one there. No one within about 15 yards of him, 20 yards. It was crazy. I couldn't believe the amount of space. And even he was a bit surprised, to a point where he was like, well, if I'm in this much space, I might as well shoot. And he did. And he almost scored. If Mendy had got a little bit less on the shot, it would have gone in. It's crazy to watch that. I've never seen in a game of such high level that Harry Kane gets so much space on the ball. Just crazy. So that was that was kind of Kane in a nutshell in this game. He just left so much space in the midfield, because I think players were so busy marking the forward runners from Bellingham and Henderson, and even Rice sometimes as well. And then obviously Saka and Foden going the other way. It's just really good tactics. I don't know whether you can necessarily say it's not clever or revolutionary, because this isn't a new thing. Like, false nines have been a thing since for like 20 years, to an extent, thereabouts. And I think for England, they've kind of stumbled on this, like, oh, Kane's actually pretty good at receiving the ball deep and then playing the ball long and then getting into the box and scoring. But it also creates this tactical problem where they can't really mark him all the way out there, the centre backs, because they'd leave all the space in behind. So what do? You leave them, you kind of mark space almost. And for a team like England who like to keep the ball as much as they do, I think it works brilliantly. What might not work, and this is the thing, I think we're going to see a different England against this France team, because if you think about who plays for France in that midfield, you've got Tchouaméni, who is an absolute bulldog terrier. He just nips at people's feet all the time, but he's also really good on the ball, so he's fairly press resistant. So it's quite difficult to see Kane having that much space against France. And I think it's much more likely we're going to see a Kane who's going to have balls kind of thrown into him, and he's going to have to get flick-ons, he's going to have to do passes back, he's going to have to try and guard the ball a bit. But he's not going to get the space he had against Senegal. No chance. I don't see it. I think it would be, unless we're going 1-0 up early and then France are throwing everything at us, I don't see that happening. So yeah, I think also the tactical shuffle that Senegal made, where they took off a midfielder and put on another striker, and then put on another midfielder. So it just afforded a bit more space in the midfield as well in that second half. And it was fairly obvious from watching that Kane was going to have a field day. And I think when it went to 3-0, Senegal kind of accepted defeat a bit. And as I say, I was disappointed in them from the way they crumbled after the first goal. But in the end, I think quality did kind of shine through. And then I've not really written many notes for after the third goal, because not much happened. England made 5 subs, Senegal made 3 at half time, and then a couple more afterwards, I think. And they looked just deflated. They looked absolutely done, which is such a shame. You kind of think, what would have happened if Gay was playing? What would have happened if Sadio Mane was playing? Would they have been a lot more? Definitely would have been more streetwise. Definitely, I think Sadio Mane's leadership qualities are very underestimated. But also, I think they would have just had a bit more quality up front and more threat, and England would have probably been more concerned about that. And unfortunately, it's robbed us of a really good game in a way. Having said that, as an England fan, totally happy for us going through. And this game against France is looking really, really, really good. There's no way that it's going to be a kind of a landslide one way or the other. No chance. I can't see that. If you look at the teams that France have lost to in the past, especially in major tournaments, they've all been kind of spoilers. So obviously France I don't think they lost in the World Cup in 2018 as far as I'm aware. And Mbappe just turned up at the crucial moments in the knockout stages. Think of the 3 goals or 2? I think it was the two goals against Argentina, and then the goals that he scored all the way into the final against Croatia. He scored a couple of goals in that as well, and it's just like, it's very, very difficult to stop because he's good from range. He's great in behind. He's a good first time finisher. He can head the ball even. It's just a crazily good player. And it's difficult not to make it all about him, but there is other threats on the field. Giroud, obviously, I think most of the England players should know about him. He's been playing for Chelsea and for Arsenal over the years. And then Dembele on the right-hand side has played probably his best football for France since he started. I think he's played really, really well. And he fits in this team as well, which is the most important thing. The cog the space that he fills with that cog in the midfield and the front line is just brilliant. Left footer on the right hand side, so he can cut inside, he can shoot. We haven't really seen him shoot very often, to be fair. I think he's been told to try and keep the ball as much as possible and then deliver the ball for Giroud or Mbappe on the other side, and then link up with players like Griezmann, Rabiot and Tchouaméni in midfield. I think if there's one place that England could really do some damage to this France team, is just work rate. If you think about Rabiot, I've never really considered him as someone who can work very hard off the ball. If England can put pressure on this France team, I think we might be in a situation where England are actually keeping a lot of the ball, And then it's all about how can England deal with the counter-attack, and are they going to get ripped apart by Mbappe on the counter-attack? Personally, I mean, I'm an Arsenal fan, and I remember the days when Arsenal used to play with Henry, basically Henry up front, and everyone else in midfield and defence. And the game plan was, like the 2006 Champions League run, we sat back, and then as soon as we got the ball, right, Henry, one-on-one, go and run. And it worked. He scored a goal against Real Madrid. He scored against Juventus. He scored. Didn't score against Villarreal then, and didn't score against Barca. But the way that we worked as a team was really impressive. Whether that's what France will do here, I don't think so, because it doesn't look like that's how they're set up. They might change it, but I very much doubt that'll happen. So they are. Yeah, they're doing very, very well, I think, throughout this tournament. I think England's, but this is going to be the most difficult game that they've faced so far. And as I mentioned, I think Harry Maguire could be a bit of a liability on the ball as well if he gets caught. I'm trying to think of any other things. At the backs, France look really good as well. And this is the other concern I've got. I think Lloris doesn't look good. Don't get me wrong. I think the Spurs goalkeeper, any Spurs goalkeeper is rubbish, but him in particular, I think they just don't. He doesn't look, even today against Poland, probably one of the most kind of get your deck chair out and just relax kind of games that you could possibly think of. And he's still like going up for a cross, half catching it, and it falls out of his hands. The only reason they don't concede from that is because Lewandowski's already assumed that Lloris has got it and he's not going to let it go. So it's quite frustrating, actually, as a fan watching that, thinking, well, there's Lewandowski, there's all this hype around him, but I think he's a good finisher. But in terms of like the team play and putting the pressure on the opposition, doesn't really do it. He never does it, and he's not. I mean, if you ask me, would I have him at Arsenal? No, I wouldn't, because his work off the ball is rubbish. He gets good service. I think at Bayern Munich he's also, to be fair, it's very convenient for him to be at Bayern Munich because he gets loads of chances in a league that, generally speaking, the rest of the league just falls over backwards to let Bayern win the league. So it's not something that, and I don't think Lewandowski is someone that I necessarily respect as like an all-time goal scorer. He might do records, and he might have had that 1 year during COVID where he was amazing. But I think, generally speaking, when it comes to the big moments in the Champions League, apart from that one win in the Champions League, what else has he done? Not much. Poland obviously aren't really good enough, I don't think, to give him that platform. But I think even Bayern Munich, it's difficult to really kind of recognise his talents in a league that is so one-sided towards Bayern and not against anyone else. It's a real shame from that point of view. So yeah, Lloris is a bit interesting. I'm not sure about the rest of the defence though. They'll look very, very good. Look very good. So I think how long are we going here? That is 25. What are we doing here now? I'm trying to figure out how long we've been going. It doesn't actually say. Oh, it does. Here we go. 35 minutes. That's about right, I think. So I suppose tomorrow we've got two more last 16 games. And I think if there's one criticism of this World Cup, yes, we've had a few upsets in the group stages, but it's the group stages. You can kind of get away with the defeat and you're still through. This is Argentina, for example, Spain, Portugal, France. They've all lost a game in the group stages and they're still through. It's not a knockout stage, that. So I'm really hoping that we see a bit of a shock, a little bit of a shock. Please, let's have a shock tomorrow or Tuesday, please, because I feel like the quality. Obviously, we want the quality to shine through. Fair enough, but at the moment, it looks like if you look at all of the games that are being played in these last 16, there are clear favourites in every single one of these games, and I really struggle to see how any of these favourites don't win these games. So Japan playing Costa Rica tomorrow at 3:00. Costa Rica are just a really good team. They'll control the midfield. The only thing they could possibly, from a tactical point of view, cost them this game is their ability to be able to handle Japan's pressing and their work rate. If they can handle it and then expose spaces in behind, I think they'll be fine. I think they'll win pretty comfortably. Brazil against South Korea, same thing. They've got South Korea have really good work rate, but Brazil have so much quality going forward. You can't. It's really difficult to imagine a world where they don't take advantage of the spaces in behind. So they'll win. That's the Monday evening, and then Tuesday evening, Morocco against Spain. I think, is this the one that I think maybe they could upset? I just always flag up Spain as a team that could potentially just lose a game out of nowhere. Even though they look pretty good this tournament, and winning 7-0 the first game, I think has given a bit of everyone else a bit of a curveball in terms of their expectations, because I think a lot of people thought, oh, they're pretty good, this Spain team, but actually I don't think they're that good. They've still got a lot to prove. Having said that, I would love to see a Spain-Portugal quarterfinal. I think that would be interesting. Portugal playing Switzerland. Again, I'd expect Portugal to go through. Sorry, Xhaka, you're not going to make it through. I can't see it. I think it's really difficult to see you winning that game. And it's difficult with Morocco because I think if you look at the group stages, actually, Morocco didn't really do all that. But obviously, they won their group, which kind of feels weird to me because I don't even think they were necessarily the best team in that group. But they did win 2 games and draw 1, so they were outright group winners as well. And that opening draw against Croatia was really big. But then beating Belgium and then beating Canada, it does kind of make you think, can they beat this Spain team as well? I do think it's a considerable step up though from Spain. From Belgium. It's a massive step up from Belgium. I'd be very surprised if they beat Spain based on the knowledge of them beating Belgium, basically. Having said that, I do remember that Morocco did absolutely dominate Belgium all the way through that game. So maybe they can. They've got good players, Ziyech and Hakimi on the right-hand side. There is an element of athleticism about this Moroccan team that could worry this Spain team. And even though Spain like to keep the ball as much as they can, I think if Morocco are able to take their chances, they could really put Spain under pressure. And then it'll be up to them to fashion goals for themselves. But yeah, I think that's more or less it. I've covered. If you want to, don't forget to watch my earlier stream from today, where I talked a bit about the Arsenal situation and Gabriel Jesus. Really hope we don't get any more injuries from this World Cup, because Jesus is bad enough as it was. But as you see in that video, it looks like it's something that's actually been kind of going on in the background, and this has just kind of been the final straw, really, for him. And a bit on the other games that we missed. I didn't put a video up about for the last few days. So I suppose my next video, I might do one tomorrow night, depending on if there's much to talk about. But if not, then there'll be a video on Tuesday night where I'll be live streaming again. Obviously it's a live stream, so if people watching want to comment and ask questions about what I've said, feel free to do that. But otherwise it's kind of there for everyone to just kind of watch afterwards and or listen to as well. That's kind of the idea behind these. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. And if you enjoyed watching, make sure you hit the like button. If you've enjoyed my videos so far and you haven't yet subscribed, please do subscribe and hit the bell notification to be notified of when I next put up a video or a live stream. And I'll be seeing you tomorrow or Tuesday, depending on what's necessarily worth doing. Or if there's any other breaking news, then I'll be live talking about that. No, maybe not straight away, but relatively speaking. So yeah, have a good evening and enjoy the games tomorrow. And usually that's when I would stop the video. I'm having to get out of the idea of this is part of the video. Now this is the calm down and I can